Today's October 13th, 2024. Current Bitcoin price is $62,248.
Welcome to the BitBite podcast, your source for news and information about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. This podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not financial advice.
How are you, Rick?
I'm doing okay. Still coughing and sneezing. Well, not really sneezing, more coughing. That was the parting gift from the cold that I had last week.
Woo! Man, good times.
Yeah.
Good times. We both got slammed with bugs like within a couple of weeks of each other. Yeah, anyway, and there's been a lot of that in the air, it seems like. But I mean, that happens around the seasonal change.
True.
I mean, for those of you that don't know, we're in North America, right?
Yeah.
So our fall is in swing, although it has been unseasonably warm, I think.
For sure.
I was looking at pictures of my leaves, the bane of my existence, and last year at this time, they were already all turned. You know, my maple tree still hasn't changed colors yet, so yeah.
Yeah, they're going to stick around a little bit longer this fall, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll kind of stick out for a bit longer. We are approaching Bitcoin's white paper day. That's coming up October 31st. Nice little anniversary for Bitcoin.
Yep. That'll be the 17th year when it was published, or...
I don't think it's
the 16th year.
I think it'll be, is it 16 this year? I'd have to go back and look because I want to say 2009, 2010. 2009, right?
2009. It sounds something like that. I know that it was published after the Great Recession.
Right, yeah.
Last time.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was a year later, if it was that, I don't think it was in the same year as 2008. Maybe it was
no.
Here. So I think it was 2009, October 31st, 2009. I think. I could be wrong. We'd have to look that up. I don't want to feed you all misinformation.
Yeah.
But so we've had some, I was still very optimistic for how the month was going to begin. And then we're, basically about halfway through, and we still haven't seen Uptober take place yet.
So still Downtober.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're going to be more accurate on this than I was. But go real quick. Let's talk about our theoretical purchases. Where are we at?
Okay, so basically a year ago, or October 27th, if you would have bought $3,000 of Bitcoin, and at that time it was it would just cross 30.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look and see. Yeah, I think we were in the early 30s, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it wasn't too high on the 30s, but it was right before that next phase took off. So if you would have bought 3,000, you would have ended up with 0.0885 Bitcoin. Today, you would have $5,509 worth of Bitcoin, so $2,500 profit. Still, it's been higher, it's been lower, but you're still sitting pretty. Now, the second theoretical purchase is usually you buy right at the halving and you wait. I mean, you're going to have to wait generally 6 months after the halving at least. And it's not been quite that long. Well, actually, we're coming up on 6 months since the halving.
Yeah.
I think that was on April 19th or 20th.
Yeah, it was right around there. I know everybody was like, oh yeah, 420.
420. So, bought 1,000 that day. You would have ended up with 1.5 Satoshis, or 0.01564, and right now that $1,000 is sitting at $974, so you're down $26.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that first one was definitely like an Uptober. I can't remember. Did we finish? We'd have to go back and look and see. Was that when we did the $3,000 back in October of last year? Did we end the month really strong on that? I think we did, didn't we?
Yeah, no, the month looked really good because that's when it because it was above 30,000, but things had kind of hit 30,000 back when the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, because it was trading around 20 before that.
Yeah.
So it went up to 30, but it hung out and it kind of sputtered around. And then it seemed like October was the month that it broke free past 30,000 and was going to the next leg higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has not been back since.
For sure. No, that was a good call at that time. That was probably one of the best buys I think I've seen in a while, was buying in October of last year. But obviously we can't rewind time. I'm hoping that we see, like with the halving 1,000 purchase, if we're looking at that in, say maybe spring of next year, I'm really hoping that looks really good too, but we'll have to wait and see. ETF flows, we typically talk about that at the beginning of the show as well. I put the chart in there from the far side, and it hasn't been spectacular. Last time we recorded was on the 3rd. We didn't have BlackRock's numbers, I think, at that time when we recorded, but it looks like they bought $36 billion that day. It's been, pretty balanced, right? Like outflows and inflows. More inflows when you look at the totals, but not by much.
Yeah, the days kind of, it'll do a stretch of 3 or 4 in a row, in, 3 out, 2 in, 3 out, kind of sporadic.
It does look like, though, I'm just looking at this and I apologize for interrupting you, but I'm looking at this here, and it looks like Grayscale, for the most part, they have slowed down significantly on their outflows.
Yes.
They're not buying anything, but
it's also showing a fair bit of Fidelity outflows, and the other ones, ARC.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
No, it's kind of interesting. I think the things are going to be sideways still for a while. And you were talking about, hopefully you see that halving price go up, come March. If you kind of almost think back to last time, if it does anything kind of similar, after the election, it kind of took off, but it wasn't really until December that things really got cooking. And then by January, February, things were insane.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have that kind of repeat. It'll just putz around for a bit until December.
Yeah. One of the other things, too, that we always typically report on when it happens is CPI. So we did get the CPI print. I almost completely missed it. I'm glad you called it out. So we hit 2.4% for the month of September, which was above the forecast, which I know it's below what it was in August, but it's still higher than I think they were expecting by 0.1%. And it's kind of interesting, too, because I saw one report saying that the Fed was going to not cut any more interest rates because of that CPI print, but I'm like, I don't know about that. We'll have to wait and see, kind of what they come out with in November. But everything kind of tanked on that news. But there was one thing that we were kind of looking at the charts, and one thing that has actually done really well. And that's kind of one of the things that you've always liked as well, is gold, right?
Yeah. I'm not specific to gold or Bitcoin. I think they're both solid investments when things come unglued.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of interesting looking at that, because gold, like, we had the hardest time, like when you look at the gold markets, getting above 2,000 for a while there. Like, it would peak above it, but it would never really stay, right?
Right.
And now gold's sitting at $2,657. So that's been actually a pretty substantial increase.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Peter Schiff has one of those blank eating grims things right now,
about
Bitcoin and just yucking it up right now. So good for him.
I have not seen his tweets lately, but I'm sure. But I haven't been looking either. Like, I've been kind of, I'm bad sometimes because I get kind of caught up like everybody else, where I get bored with the price. And I mean, when you got the sideways down action going on, it's hard to stay excited. But at the same time, like, I know what's going to come in the future. But I think I do it for my own mental sanity, I think is the way to put it.
Yeah.
Like, I won't dive in. Like, I'll dive in still just to stay current on the market, but I won't, it gets to where I'm not refreshing my, my portfolio every 30 seconds or, whatever. Whenever you're getting those like $5,000 moves in a day, you're like, oh, salivating at the mouth. But yeah, like markets in general kind of responded negatively to that news, which typically whenever we see something like this, which it's still, let's talk about this. Like, it's still like a good trend. We're going down still according to their numbers. We still don't believe their numbers, right? Like, we know it's kind of cooked, whatever the case may be. They cherry pick their data. So it's still down, but it wasn't, they wanted it to be 2.3 instead of 2.4, basically.
Well, and the unemployment numbers, of course, they get revised every time, and they got revised down again. And it seems it hit every other market except gold hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So initial filings for unemployment benefits took an unexpected turn higher, and this is coming off of CNBC right now. Hitting is seasonally adjusted to 258,000 jobs for the week, or new jobless claims for the week ending October 5th, the highest total since August 5th of 2023. So it looks like that was quite a blow to the market. We'll see. Typically, like I say, people, they get down on the news and then they're like, oh yeah, we want to make money, so they'll pick it back up.
Well, it's just going to be kind of interesting now. I mean, people are claiming there's going to be no Fed cut. Yeah. I still think there's going to be a cut.
I do too. I think, and maybe it won't be the 50 basis points like what we got previously, but I still think there'll be a Fed cut, and it could still be 50 basis points, if not higher.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll get more clarity as we get into November. I don't expect to hear much about it in October, other than some of the people just talking about what's going to happen coming up. So I think at the end of the day right now, market's still going sideways and down. We still haven't seen that pressure, like that catalyst that's going to really kick us off into this next leg of the bull run. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's not going to come till after the election. I would like to see October end strong, but I'm not giving up hope yet, but I think you're probably more right than I am on that one.
Mm-hmm. I kind of agree. Yeah. This year, the only reason I said that is because this is a weird year. Whatever the previous trend is, you can't really count on it. It always jukes and moves in directions you don't expect.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things that you'll hear that a lot, especially from people within the Bitcoin space. They're going to talk about how, the cycles typically rhyme, but they never match exactly, right? So it'll be similar, but not quite the same thing. I think I get overly excited, and I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for us to see a 6-figure Bitcoin. And I really do want to see that before the end of the year. Is it still possible? Like, if it kicks off in November, like after presidential election in the United States? Sure it is. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I would just like to see us get closer to that 70 mark before that happens. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. And just for me, it's like, I do think we're going to have a Bitcoin rally, that final leg up. It's not guaranteed, and I'll be the first to admit that. There's some people who just say, oh yeah, it's going to for sure happen. And I'm not ever going to say that. But I will say, I think it will happen. Just with how everything's lining up with the economy and the markets. Like, that would be that last final blow off top.
Yeah.
And the Elliott wave.
Yeah.
And then it crashes after that. So I'm kind of concerned about how long the Bitcoin rally is going to last, and just the markets in general, like stock markets. Maybe it isn't a bad idea to have some gold on you come this year.
Yeah.
Diversify a little bit.
Yeah. It's going to be one of those, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. 'Cause typically, the whole thing is we got so sideways from the early rise that we got at the beginning of the year because of the ETFs. Because normally, I mean, we talked about it, I think it's been like 3 or 4 episodes ago, but we're kind of right in line where we would be at this point in the market, like at this point in the cycle. It's kind of where we should be.
We basically had the growth spurt early, and then before it kind of tapered off.
Yeah. So it's weird to see where it's going to play out, because typically, we should be seeing this bull run extend still for a good part of next year at the same time. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen this time. I'm still optimistic in the long term, but we'll have to kind of see how that plays. And I think the presidential election, I think we've talked about that before too. I think the presidential election will have a huge impact, because it's going to be either we get the pro-crypto candidate, or at least the appearance of a pro-crypto candidate. I'm not going to say necessarily pro-crypto, but the lip service to crypto. And then we have the one that's really kind of not saying one way or the other.
And whose predecessor that she was part of the same administration of was fairly anti-crypto. So
yeah, so I would assume that would kind of continue. It's kind of interesting, because I think we have talked about that on the podcast, where, we've always thought, or at least I've always thought, Bitcoin should be embraced by both the left and the right. And it seems like now it's being politicized to where it's only a right kind of thing. I don't know. I think that's kind of weird, but I guess that falls in line, because it seems like, and I don't want to get overly political, but it seems like the left is really just about, you don't need individual liberties.
Yeah, they'd get rid of it. Actually, they've been giving lip service to the fact that the First Amendment is bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad for building consensus.
Yeah. Yeah. They basically talked about censoring X, that it needs to be regulated. And yeah, there's a lot of different things that I'm like, really? You guys are against free speech? And again, I don't want to get overly political, but like, what the heck happened to the Democratic Party? They used to be all about that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I don't want to get too political, but I just think that when it comes to certain groups, especially the people on the left, when they are out of power, they have a certain position. And when they're in power, that position changes quite a bit.
Yeah.
And whatever you want to say, all the institutions, the corporations, the universities, the Hollywood, the press, they're all controlled by the left. So
yeah,
they have the power.
Yeah, and I feel like the military industrial complex really kind of has wheedled their way into the Democratic Party as of late.
They've been kicked out of the Republicans almost.
Yeah.
Not completely, but they definitely have a warmer embrace on the left nowadays.
Yeah, and I think the only reason why they got I think the only reason why they got kicked was because of Trump. And it's not that he just doesn't care for what they want. Again, not getting overly political, but if you get a chance, check out Chapter 5 by Beck's newest book, Truths. If you get a moment, to me, that's the best description of the deep state in the United States, like the shadow government. Amazingly well thought out, well explained. And it's, well done. If you get a moment, if you get a chance, just Chapter 5, I think that's the biggest issue that we have in the United States right now. And it's probably true of most Western democratic countries. They probably have that same issue. Anyways.
Well, yeah. Not to get any more political, but dang it, why couldn't Vivek have been our presidential candidate? Why are we stuck with Trump?
Yeah, I agree. Anyways, moving on to more Bitcoin news. Sorry for that, especially those of you that are listening overseas that don't really care about U.S. politics, but in some way you probably do. Mt. Gox has postponed their repayment deadline to actually October 31st of 2025. So I know there was a lot of fear in the market of what was going to happen whenever those Mt. Gox coins came back online, if people were going to sell right away. These people have been sitting on these losses for a long time, and if they actually get made even partially whole, they're looking at a fair sum of cash. Are they going to cash out right away? That's a big question. And I think the markets were kind of timid or tepid because they were terrified that these people were going to come online, sell their coins, and dive the price, right?
Yeah.
But just as an FYI, they have postponed the repayment to 2025. So that should alleviate some of that selling pressure for a little bit, or at least the fear of the selling pressure.
That's going to be interesting because, again, going back to the cycles, if they wait a year from now, it'll match up with the 4-year cycle of the crash last year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be the beginning of us going into a downswing. And, I'm kind of curious. I would have to do more research and dive in to kind of see why did they delay it to the end of the cycle?
I don't know. Maybe they don't think they're going to get enough.
Could be. I'm kind of curious about that. Like why the push out? Because these people waited a long time already. So anyways, I will say good for them. I'm glad that they're going to give, some of that back. There was also some news about, some people being made whole from, Stan Bankman-Fried's fiasco. So
FTX.
Yeah, the FTX collapse. There's some of that kind of swirling around right now too. But again, I don't know the details on when that's going to happen or when that's going to become made whole again as well, or whatever their repayment options are going to be.
Well, it doesn't sound like anyone with FTX is going to be made whole. Their balance sheet versus what they had, it was very drastically different from what I understand.
Yeah, and it seems like that would make sense, because if he's getting charged with all this stuff, like they can't have had all the money still sitting there. Like they would have lost it. So even if it's pennies on the dollar, again, I'm happy for those people, because I think there was a lot of people that lost a lot with that. So, but yeah, I don't know specifics on that one. We'd have to dive deeper into that on a further episode or in a following episode. One thing I do want to bring up, kind of before we kind of close this out, was there's a new documentary on Max about Bitcoin. And I think we need to, maybe before we record again this next week, if we get a chance, maybe we both should watch it and kind of give our 2 cents on it.
Yeah. No, it sounds interesting. They had a pretty good marketing campaign where they said that they were going to reveal who Satoshi was.
Yeah. I'm still kind of on the fence. The documentary itself is called Money Electric, the Bitcoin Mystery. And it sounds like a big part of it is who is Satoshi Nakamoto. The creator of the documentary believes that it's a gentleman by the name of Peter Todd. And he describes himself as a crypto chronomancer on X. And basically he's somebody that's been involved in some of the development of Bitcoin from the early days. So that's like he joined on in about 2012. He's worked on different projects, whether it was for Mastercoin. I think he worked with Snowden on Zcoin, which was supposed to be an anonymous type of cryptocurrency. And I think the big crux of it, and again, I haven't watched this yet, but I think the big crux of the documentary is because he made a comment saying that he destroyed a bunch of Bitcoin by hand in the early days. So I guess that's where he's coming with that. I need to watch it and find out. But Peter Todd denies it, and I think a lot of the people within the crypto industry don't think it, they don't buy it either. But I'd be kind of curious to see. I want to see the documentary. I love watching Bitcoin documentaries when they come out, because they're typically done pretty well. And it's kind of funny because as Bitcoin has gone on, the documentary started off being just kind of like a dude on YouTube putting some stuff together, and slowly like the production quality's gotten better and better as it's gotten more valued in the market. So
yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. And I think this kind of thing is good, especially it's good for crypto, raising its Bitcoin, raising its profile with some normies who might stumble across it who otherwise wouldn't know what it is.
Yeah, people are still, I don't know. I think it's still kind of interesting that the mystery of Satoshi Nakamoto. And I really, honestly, I think in my heart of hearts, I hope we never know who Satoshi Nakamoto is.
I agree. The beauty of the Satoshi story is that he came in, did his thing, and then he disappeared.
Yeah.
It's not like Ethereum or any other group's, founder, and they say something political, kind of like we did, and then they turn off half their community, or, it's way better to just leave it alone.
Yeah. It becomes one of those things where, what's the old saying? Never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
And Satoshi, for the most part, is a hero and a legend to me. And I don't ever want to know who that person was, because the human being is going to be flawed. And it seems like they created such a, I won't say perfect, but damn near perfect form of money for the digital age.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up today?
I think we've said enough.
Yeah, we actually ended up going longer than I thought we were going to when we started the episode today. But we do thank you all for listening. We saw a nice little spike in audience, I guess is the way I'm going to put it. So if you are enjoying our shows, please share it with people. Get the word out. Let them know that we are recording at least weekly. We try and get one out at least once a week. We try and be consistent with the days we release, but that doesn't always happen. We have lives in the in-between, and we don't receive any revenue from that. So
we have wives and lives.
Yeah, exactly. They often take precedence. But if you do want to support us, sign up for our newsletter on the website, www.thebitbytepodcast.com, just to let us know, hey, yeah, we do want to hear more of what you guys are having to say. We also have on our deals page, we have links to buy a Ledger and an Alipal wallet. Again, you're buying directly from the manufacturer, but it does give us a little bit of a kickback if you buy through our links, if you plan on doing some self-custody on your own. And also, so for signing up for the newsletter, you will get your self-custody checklist. So,
indeed.
Anything else you want to add?
That's it for me.
Well, thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.
Bye.